The small American town begins to stir as George enters his convenience store before dawn. He moves methodically through the aisles, straightening products and ensuring everything is in its place. As he works, his mind wanders to a recent conversation with friends about suspicious people in the neighborhood. The discussion had left him feeling uneasy, and that discomfort resurfaces as he notices Malik entering the store. Malik, dressed in casual clothes that give no hint of his position as police chief, walks into the store with purpose. He begins to browse the aisles, picking up items and reading labels. As he moves through the store, he becomes acutely aware of George's watchful gaze following his every move. The tension in the air is palpable, but Malik chooses to ignore it, focusing instead on completing his shopping. George's unease grows with each passing moment. His mind races, filled with preconceived notions and unfounded suspicions. Unable to contain himself any longer, he decides to confront Malik. With a raised voice that echoes through the quiet store, George accuses Malik of theft. The sudden outburst draws the attention of the few other early morning customers, who turn to watch the scene unfold. The atmosphere in the store shifts dramatically. What was once a routine morning has now become a powder keg of racial tension. Other customers begin to gather, drawn by the commotion. Some look on with shock, others with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. The air feels heavy with unspoken words and long-held prejudices suddenly brought to the surface. Malik stands still, facing George's accusations with a calm demeanor that belies the gravity of the situation. He opens his mouth to speak, to explain that he's simply there to buy a snack, but George's loud accusations drown out his words. The confrontation escalates quickly, with George becoming increasingly aggressive and Malik struggling to maintain his composure. As the confrontation between George and Malik intensifies, customers in the store begin to take sides. Some, influenced by their own prejudices, nod in agreement with George's accusations. Others shift uncomfortably, embarrassed by the blatant display of racism unfolding before them. The division among the onlookers mirrors the deeper racial tensions that have long simmered beneath the surface of the town's seemingly peaceful exterior. Among the gathering crowd, Sarah, a young student, watches the scene with growing discomfort. Her eyes dart between George's angry face and Malik's composed expression. She feels a knot forming in her stomach, recognizing the injustice of the situation, but struggling with how to respond. Malik tries again to explain himself, his voice steady despite the hostility directed at him. "I'm just here to buy a snack," he says, holding up the items he had intended to purchase. But his words seem to fall on deaf ears as George becomes increasingly agitated. The store owner's face reddens, his accusations growing more outlandish with each passing moment. The tension in the air thickens, reflecting the town's underlying racial issues that have now bubbled to the surface. Some customers mutter in agreement with George, while others look away, unwilling to get involved. The polarization of the crowd becomes a microcosm of the larger societal divide. Sarah feels torn. She recalls lessons learned at home about prejudice and the importance of standing up for what's right. Yet, as she watches George's ferocity and the passive acceptance of many onlookers, she finds herself paralyzed by social pressure. Her conscience urges her to speak up, but fear holds her back. The young student's internal struggle reflects a broader conflict within the community. It's a battle between ingrained biases and the desire for change, between the comfort of silence and the necessity of speaking out. Sarah's hesitation to intervene symbolizes the town's reluctance to address its deep-seated racial issues. As the situation continues to escalate, the air in the store becomes suffocating with tension. The early morning sunlight streaming through the windows seems at odds with the dark scene unfolding inside. What started as a routine trip to the convenience store has quickly devolved into a pivotal moment that will force the town to confront its hidden prejudices. Amidst the growing chaos, Malik takes a deep breath and raises his hand, signaling for silence. His calm demeanor contrasts sharply with George's agitation. "Everyone deserves respect, regardless of skin color," Malik states firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. The crowd falls quiet, some people shifting uncomfortably as they process his words. Murmurs ripple through the gathered onlookers. A few cast disapproving glances at George, reconsidering their initial support for his actions. The atmosphere in the store begins to shift, with some customers looking ashamed of their initial reactions. George, however, refuses to back down. His face contorted with anger, he responds to Malik's plea for respect with a barrage of insults. The racial slurs echo through the store, causing several customers to gasp in shock. But Malik stands his ground, unfazed by George's outburst. In a surprising turn of events, Malik calmly reaches into his pocket and pulls out his police badge. "I'm the chief of police," he announces, his voice steady and authoritative. "I'm conducting a survey on racial dynamics in our town." The revelation sends shockwaves through the crowd. A stunned silence descends upon the store. The customers who had been supporting George moments ago now look mortified. George himself stands frozen, his mouth agape as he processes this new information. The weight of his actions comes crashing down on him as he realizes he's just racially profiled and verbally abused the town's chief of police. Malik's revelation serves as a stark wake-up call for many in the store. It forces them to confront their own biases and assumptions, challenging the racial prejudices that have long gone unchecked in their community. The silence that follows is heavy with shock, shame, and the dawning realization of the gravity of the situation. George, still reeling from the revelation, attempts to backpedal. He stammers out weak excuses, trying to justify his behavior, but his words ring hollow in the face of his blatant prejudice. The other customers watch this display with a mix of disgust and pity, many of them realizing their own complicity in allowing such attitudes to persist in their town. As the initial shock wears off, a palpable sense of change begins to permeate the air. Malik's presence and his calm handling of the situation have sparked a moment of reckoning for the community. The convenience store, once a mundane part of daily life, has become the stage for a pivotal moment in the town's history. In the wake of his revelation, Malik seizes the opportunity to turn this tense situation into a teachable moment. He proposes an impromptu dialogue, inviting George and the other customers to reflect on their attitudes and share their experiences with prejudice. "Let's talk about why this happened," Malik suggests, his tone firm but not accusatory. The crowd hesitates, the silence in the store thick with discomfort. Some shuffle their feet, avoiding eye contact, while others look at Malik with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. George, still visibly shaken by the turn of events, remains rooted to the spot, his earlier bravado completely deflated. Slowly, tentatively, a few voices begin to speak up. An elderly woman recounts her own experiences with discrimination, her voice quavering with emotion. A middle-aged man admits to his own biases, expressing a desire to change. The ice begins to break as more people find the courage to share their stories. Throughout this exchange, Sarah listens intently, her earlier paralysis giving way to a growing sense of purpose. Inspired by Malik's courage and the openness of those around her, she finally finds her voice. "I've always been afraid to talk about race," she admits, her voice gaining strength as she continues. "But I've been researching these issues for a school project, and I want to understand more about the injustices people face." Sarah's contribution shifts the conversation. Other young people in the store, emboldened by her example, begin to share their own thoughts and experiences. They speak of the disconnect between what they learn in school about equality and the realities they observe in their community. As the dialogue unfolds, George listens in stunned silence. The weight of his actions and the deeply ingrained nature of his prejudices begin to dawn on him. He looks around at the diverse group of people in his store, seeing them perhaps for the first time as individuals with their own stories and struggles. Malik guides the conversation skillfully, ensuring that everyone who wants to speak has the opportunity. He encourages people to be honest about their feelings and experiences, creating a safe space for difficult truths to be aired. The convenience store, usually a place of quick transactions and minimal interaction, has transformed into a forum for community introspection and growth. This impromptu meeting marks a turning point for the town. What began as a confrontation has evolved into a moment of collective reflection and the first steps towards understanding and change. The air in the store, once heavy with tension, now buzzes with the energy of possibility and the tentative hope for a more inclusive future. As the impromptu dialogue winds down, George, overwhelmed by the stories he's heard, attempts to apologize. His words come out awkward and stilted, clearly unpracticed in admitting fault. I'm sorry, he stammers, his gaze fixed on the floor. I didn't realize. Malik, sensing George's genuine discomfort, steps in with empathy. Apologies are a start, George, he says, his tone firm but not unkind. But real change comes from listening and learning. Are you ready to do that? The question hangs in the air, challenging not just George, but everyone present. The tension in the store, while lessened, remains palpable. George's apology, though a step in the right direction, does little to erase the hurt caused by his earlier actions. Some customers eye him skeptically, while others nod encouragingly, recognizing the difficulty of admitting one's faults publicly. Seizing the moment, Sarah steps forward with a proposal. What if we turn this into something positive, she suggests, her voice gaining confidence. I could create a school project that promotes empathy and dialogue about race. We could involve the whole community. Her idea is met with murmurs of approval. Other young people in the store, energized by the possibility of change, quickly offer their support. They begin to brainstorm ideas for workshops, community events, and educational initiatives that could help bridge the racial divide in their town. George, still reeling from the morning's events, listens to these suggestions with growing interest. He realizes that his store, the very place where this confrontation began, could become a force for positive change in the community. I want to be involved, he says, his voice quiet but determined. I need to learn more about diversity and how to make everyone feel welcome here. This declaration marks a significant shift. The man who just hours ago had been hurling racial accusations is now committing to educate himself and improve. While skepticism remains among some of the customers, others recognize the importance of allowing space for growth and redemption. Malik nods approvingly at George's commitment. Change isn't easy, he acknowledges, but it's necessary. And it starts with each of us making an effort to understand one another. As the group begins to disperse, there's a sense that something fundamental has shifted in the town's dynamics. The convenience store, once just a backdrop to daily life, has become the birthplace of a movement towards greater understanding and inclusivity. The path ahead is long and uncertain, but the first crucial steps have been taken. In the days following the incident, Malik takes a proactive approach to fostering change. He reaches out to George, offering to help him better understand the community he serves. Let's meet regularly, Malik suggests. We can discuss racial issues and improve relations between the police and the community. George, still grappling with his actions, agrees hesitantly. Their first meeting is awkward, filled with long silences and uncertain glances. But as they continue to meet, the conversations become more open and productive. They discuss everything from personal experiences with race to the broader societal issues affecting their town. Meanwhile, the convenience store undergoes a transformation. What was once just a place to grab quick supplies now becomes a hub for community dialogue. George, inspired by his conversations with Malik, decides to use his space to facilitate ongoing discussions about prejudice and inclusion. He rearranges the store layout, creating a small area with chairs where people can gather and talk. Signs promoting respect and inclusivity appear on the walls. At first, customers are surprised by the change, but gradually, they begin to engage with the new atmosphere. Sarah and her friends take full advantage of this new space. They organize regular meetings at the store, inviting young people from all backgrounds to share their stories and experiences. These gatherings attract a diverse crowd, from curious adults to engaged teenagers. One evening, a heated discussion breaks out between two customers over a recent local incident. Instead of letting it escalate, George steps in, using the conflict resolution techniques he's learned from Malik. The situation diffuses, and the customers leave with a newfound respect for each other and for George. Word spreads about the changes at the store. Some community members are skeptical, viewing it as a publicity stunt. Others, however, are drawn to the store's new role as a safe space for difficult conversations. Business actually improves as people come not just to shop, but to connect and engage. Malik becomes a regular presence at the store, not as a law enforcement figure, but as a community member and friend. His visits help bridge the gap between the police and the public, fostering a sense of trust that had been lacking. As weeks pass, the impact of these changes ripples through the town. Other businesses start to take notice, with some implementing their own initiatives to promote inclusivity. The convenience store, once the site of a racist confrontation, now stands as a symbol of the town's efforts to confront its issues and grow. As the transformation of the convenience store continues, George finds himself viewing his business in a completely new light. No longer just a means of making a living, the store has become a catalyst for change in the community. Determined to solidify this new role, George implements a series of concrete changes to ensure everyone feels welcome and respected in his store. He starts by revising the store's hiring practices, actively seeking to create a diverse staff that reflects the community. He institutes regular training sessions for his employees, focusing on cultural sensitivity and customer service. The store's product selection expands to include items catering to various cultural preferences, acknowledging the town's growing diversity. The community's response is overwhelmingly positive. More people begin to frequent the store, drawn by its inclusive atmosphere and the meaningful conversations that often spring up between the aisles. Regular customers who initially resisted the changes start to come around, engaging in discussions they would have previously avoided. George and Malik's friendship continues to grow. They often collaborate on initiatives to improve relations between law enforcement and the community. Malik organizes Coffee with a Cop events at the store, where residents can interact with police officers in a casual setting. These events help humanize the police force and address long-standing tensions. Sarah's school project, born from the initial confrontation, gains significant traction. With George's support, she organizes a series of youth-led workshops at the store, covering topics from implicit bias to the history of civil rights. These sessions attract participants from across the town, fostering intergenerational dialogue and understanding. The impact of these changes extends beyond the store's walls. Other local businesses, inspired by George's example, begin to examine their own practices and implement similar initiatives. The town starts to gain a reputation as a place committed to fostering inclusivity and addressing racial issues head-on. Sarah, seeing the fruits of her efforts, feels a sense of accomplishment. She's become a respected voice in the community, often sought out for her perspective on social issues. Her experience has solidified her desire to pursue a career in social justice. As the months pass, the convenience store becomes a model for community engagement. Visitors from neighboring towns come to see how a simple store has become a force for social change. George, once the instigator of a racial incident, is now seen as a leader in promoting understanding and equality. Just as the town begins to settle into its new rhythm of openness and dialogue, a racially charged incident occurs in another part of the city. A local restaurant is accused of discriminating against minority customers, sparking outrage and threatening to undo the progress made in recent months. George and Malik, now united in their commitment to combat prejudice, decide to take swift action. They recognize that the community's response to this incident will be crucial in determining whether the town continues on its path toward inclusivity or slides back into old patterns of division. Without hesitation, they organize an emergency community meeting at the convenience store. Word spreads quickly, and soon the store is packed with concerned citizens, local leaders, and media representatives. The atmosphere is tense, with emotions running high on all sides. Malik opens the meeting, addressing the crowd with the calm authority that has become his hallmark. He outlines the facts of the incident as they are known, emphasizing the need for a thorough investigation before jumping to conclusions. George follows, sharing his own journey from prejudice to understanding, and urging everyone to approach the situation with empathy and openness. The floor is then open for discussion. People from all walks of life step forward to share their thoughts and experiences. Some express anger at the alleged discrimination, while others voice concern about rush to judgment. The conversation is heated at times, but remains respectful, a testament to the new culture of dialogue that has taken root in the town. As the meeting progresses, concrete actions begin to emerge. A task force is formed to investigate the incident and review policies at local businesses. Plans are made for a town-wide diversity and inclusion training program. The convenience store is designated as a central hub for ongoing discussions and updates on the situation. The local media, initially drawn by the controversy, find themselves reporting on a story of community resilience and proactive problem-solving. News of the town's approach to handling the incident spreads, attracting attention from neighboring communities and even national outlets. In the days following the meeting, the convenience store becomes a symbol of resistance against prejudice and a beacon of unity. People gather there daily to check on the progress of the investigation, offer support, and continue the conversations started at the meeting. George and Malik's quick response and the community's engaged reaction demonstrate how far the town has come. What could have been a divisive incident has instead become an opportunity for the community to reaffirm its commitment to change and to put its newfound skills of dialogue and understanding into practice. As the town's reputation for progressive handling of racial issues grows, not everyone is pleased with the changes. Late one night, George receives an anonymous phone call at the store. The caller's voice is filled with anger, threatening consequences if George doesn't return to his old ways. Shaken, George considers downplaying the store's new role in the community, but ultimately decides not to let fear dictate his actions. The next morning, George arrives at the store to find it vandalized. Windows are shattered, shelves toppled, and hateful graffiti covers the walls. The sight is devastating, undoing months of hard work in a single night. As word spreads, a crowd gathers outside the store, shock and anger visible on their faces. Malik arrives quickly, both as a friend and in his capacity as police chief. He assures George that they'll find those responsible, but more importantly, he reminds him of how far they've come. This is a setback, not a defeat, Malik says firmly. Sarah, hearing about the incident, rushes to the store. Seeing George and Malik looking despondent, she steps forward with determination. "We can't let them win," she declares. "This store means too much to all of us now." Her words seem to reignite the spark in both men. News of the vandalism spreads rapidly through the town and on social media. Instead of causing fear and division as the perpetrators likely intended, it galvanizes the community. People from all walks of life begin to arrive at the store, offering help and support. A spontaneous cleanup effort begins. Neighbors bring brooms and trash bags, working side by side to clear the debris. Local businesses donate supplies to help with repairs. The graffiti is painted over with messages of love and unity. What started as an act of hate transforms into a powerful demonstration of community solidarity. Throughout the day, the convenience store becomes a hub of activity. People share stories, offer words of encouragement, and reaffirm their commitment to making their town a place of inclusivity and respect. The atmosphere, despite the circumstances, is one of hope and determination. As evening falls, the store, while still bearing scars from the attack, stands as a testament to the community's resilience. George, Malik, and Sarah stand together, surveying the results of the day's efforts. They're tired, but inspired by the outpouring of support. "They try to break us," George says, his voice steady. "But they only made us stronger." Malik nods in agreement, while Sarah begins to plan a community event to celebrate the store's reopening. The incident, meant to instill fear, has instead reinforced the town's commitment to change. A week after the vandalism incident, the convenience store hosts a community meeting to discuss recent events and plan for the future. The store, now repaired and repainted, is packed with residents from all corners of the town. The atmosphere is charged with a mix of determination and unease. As George begins to address the crowd, the door bursts open. A man storms in, his face contorted with anger. It's Tom, one of George's old friends who strongly disapproves of the store's new direction. "This has gone too far," Tom shouts, his voice echoing through the stunned silence. Tom launches into a tirade, revealing himself as one of the vandals. He rants about the town losing its identity, accusing George of betraying their friendship and values. His words are filled with the same prejudices that George once held, laying bare the deep-seated issues still plaguing the community. For a moment, tension fills the air as some of Tom's supporters voice their agreement. It seems the meeting might descend into chaos, undoing months of progress. But then, something unexpected happens. Malik steps forward, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to Tom's agitation. "Change is inevitable," he says, his voice steady and clear. "Our town is evolving, and we're choosing to grow together rather than apart." George joins him, addressing Tom directly. "I understand your fear," he says. "I felt it too, but I've learned there's a better way forward." Sarah, emboldened by their words, adds her voice. She speaks passionately about the future they're building, one where everyone feels valued and respected. Her youthful idealism resonates with many in the crowd, including some who initially seemed supportive of Tom. As the three speak, a shift occurs in the room. Tom's supporters begin to distance themselves from him, some even openly disagreeing with his views. Tom, once confident in his stance, now looks isolated and bewildered. In a powerful moment, one of Tom's closest friends steps forward. "Tom," he says, his voice heavy with emotion, "this isn't who we are anymore. It's time for us to change too." This declaration seems to deflate Tom completely. The meeting continues, with open and honest discussions about the challenges still facing the town. But there's a new energy in the air, a sense of a community united in its commitment to progress. As the gathering concludes, George stands at the center of his store, now a symbol of transformation. Malik, the catalyst for change, stands beside him, while Sarah, representing the town's future, joins them. The convenience store, once just a backdrop to daily life, now shines as a beacon of hope and inclusivity for the entire community.